Hey future York students!
I'm Sidel.
And I'm Neetha.
And welcome to the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies Program Chat Series.
We want you to know that here in LA&PS, you will study what you love and learn what you need.
In this chat, you'll be hearing from future professors as well as current students about the program.
What it has to offer you, like internship opportunities.
And what your first year in the program may look like.
Alright, should we get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Enjoy, everybody.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Liberal Arts and Professional Studies Program Chat for one of our smaller but most fascinating programs, and that's our program in African Studies. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but before we get started, I do want to take a moment to recognize the land that York University is on. This meeting is virtual, and because of that, we are not all actually gathered in the same space. York's land acknowledgement might not represent the territory that you are currently on, and I would ask that if this is the case, that you each take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are on and its current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been taken care of by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. It is now home to many Indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peacefully share and care for the Great Lakes region. I would now like to introduce a very special guest we have joining us from the African Studies Department, Professor Cisse. Good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon, Adam, and thanks for the introduction. So I would like to share with you some of the things we do in the African Studies program. So I would like to talk about what we do in the African Studies program and move on to some of the reasons that I know that motivate students who come to York to come to our program, as well as talk about some of the core courses we have in the program, opportunity for experiential learning, and some of the career paths and opportunity that you will have when you have a degree in African Studies. So what is the African Studies program all about? It is one of the many programs we have in the Department of Social Science at York University. It is also the only area of studies in the department. What we offer is a Bachelor of Arts degree in African Studies, and there are two parts for you to get this degree. You can do what we call a double major or a major and a minor. For the double major, you would require to accumulate 36 credits during your years of study. And for the major minor, you would have to accumulate 30 credits to be able to complete your African Studies degree. The thing about the two options we have is they are not standalone options. You would have to combine African Studies with another discipline in the Faculty of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies. We are working towards creating an opportunity for you to take a discipline from elsewhere in the university to combine with African Studies. Most of our students, they combine African Studies with International Development Studies, but there are other disciplines like political science, history, anthropology that you can combine with African Studies. And basically what we do is to give students an opportunity to get informed and critical knowledge about the diversity of African people, their cultures, their history, their political and socioeconomic development, both within the continent and in the outside world. So we teach and learn about Africa, not just within the continent, but also in terms of its diaspora in the world. In fact, there are some unique features of our program, even though it's a very small program that was established in 1974 as one of the oldest area studies, African studies program in Canada. It is unique in the sense that, number one, we focus, like I have mentioned, on both what's happening within Africa as well as its diaspora. You see this is reflected in our curriculum. We have courses that focus on the African diaspora as well as the African continent. But also we have given students this opportunity, and our students find it fascinating, the flexibility to be able to combine African studies with another discipline of your choice. So for those who combine African studies with international development studies, they have an opportunity to, at the end of the day, acquire knowledge from two fields that they can relate to. In our teaching and in our learning activities, we stress what we call an interdisciplinary approach. All of our courses, they are designed in such a way that we draw from a variety of perspectives within the social sciences. We have professors and scholars that are trained in different disciplines. I am a political scientist. We have professors who are sociologists, professors who are historians. We all come together to build an interdisciplinary field, which we are very proud of in terms of how we approach learning and teaching. Another thing about the program is that we have a very active and vibrant student body. They come together in associations, in events, in organizing events and activities, and they tend to come together reflecting the diversity of Africa, not just on the continent, but here in Canada, we have people who come from different African regions, people who come from different African descent. They tend to come together and organize associations and student events. Now, let me talk about why you may want to have a degree in African studies. Well, in addition to the intellectual enrichment that you will have to learn about African cultures and to be able to challenge some of the maybe stereotypical views and ideas you have about the continent, we should keep in mind that today the continent is vastly becoming the frontier of development and globalization. You think of the rising powers like the Chinas of the world. They are very active on the continent. Before COVID-19, many economies in Africa, they were among the fastest growing economies in the world. So there is a lot happening within the continent that make it attractive to students and people who are in different fields, but want to look at what is happening in that region. Another reason why you may want to take African studies here at York is that we provide very good foundation for our students who want to go to graduate school or law school when they complete their first degree. In graduate school or law school, if you have a foundation in African studies or you are interested in Africa, you can use that regional focus as something that you will combine with maybe your main discipline in law or in political science. I, for one, am a political scientist. I studied international relations and comparative politics, but my regional focus is Africa. So it helps students to get a region where they can hone in their particular disciplinary focus, but it could also help them to be able to build what we call place-based knowledge. I have mentioned that we have a strong pool of professors and researchers who are doing fascinating work on Africa and the African diaspora. We have professors who are doing work on the extractive industries. I am doing work on transitional justice and reconciliation and peace building in Africa. We have scholars who are doing work on the informal sector. A variety of research projects are going on in the program, and we make those opportunities available for students in terms of knowledge production, but also opportunities for building networks. If we're talking about networks, we have a very strong relationship with other programs and institutions at York. One particular one I would like to mention is the Harriet Tubman Institute. We have a very good relationship with this institute, and as a result of that relationship, we are able to make available additional resources to our students, and to be able to build their own networks and relationship that they will find useful while they are at York, but after they would have graduated with an African Studies degree. I'm going to mention briefly that we hold regular events with students. Here is one event we held, which is an African Studies panel discussion on COVID-19 and how it has affected African bodies at home and in the diaspora. Most of the panelists that we had for this event, they are based in Africa. So we were able to use this event to connect Africans here in the diaspora, here in Canada, and Africans on the continent. Now, let me talk about some of the courses we have in African Studies. We have a fascinating pool of courses. I'm just going to talk about 3 core courses. The first one is Introduction to African Studies, which is the course that I teach. This is an introductory survey course that gives students an opportunity to get foundational knowledge about historical and contemporary processes of change. What I do with this course is to give students an understanding of the historical and structural factors that condition socioeconomic and political change on the continent. And many students have been able to build on this foundation to take other core courses in the program, including African popular culture, which is also a very important course that many students are attracted to. And this course look at what we call the production, evolution, and growth of popular culture in Africa as it relates to socioeconomic and political development. Here, when you take this course, you'll be looking at different forms of cultural production and expression, including film, literature, fashion, music, and all of other forms of artistic expression as a medium for us to understand political and economic change in the continent. And there is the African diaspora. And this really speaks to one of the unique features of our program, which is that we combine both knowledge of what's happening within the continent and its diaspora. So this course focuses on historical and contemporary relations between Africa and the rest of the wider world. Here you would be looking at, for example, the historical process of the transatlantic slave trade and its impact for having a set of African population in the United States called African Americans, in the Caribbean, and people in other parts of the world that are of African descent. If you take this course, you will also understand how transnational movements today are related to Africa and how the continent is shaping what is happening even here in Canada. So these are 3 core courses that we have in the program. There are others. We have courses in African literature, in African development and democracy, but I thought I should give you a taste of our core courses by telling you about these 3. Here's another thing about the program, which again attracts students to our program, is that we have been able to build on our relationship with other programs, other institutions, to give students practical hands-on training or experience as they acquire a degree in African studies. So for example, in terms of experiential learning, based on our relationship with the International Development Studies program, students are able to take professional skills for international development, as well as a placement course in international development. And these courses give students an opportunity to, have experiences through internship, attachment, and relationship with organizations that are doing work in Africa, but also based here and doing work within the African diaspora. Our relationship with the Tubman Institute is also very good in terms of providing placement opportunities for our students, opportunities for network. This institute is very vibrant and visible on your campus, and they organize a lot of activities that our students are able to benefit from. Lastly, let me talk about the, of course, the thing that I think many of you are interested about, which is what do you do with your degree in African Studies? What kinds of career opportunities may open up for you? I'm going to start by noting that the degree you get from African Studies does not train you into a particular career field. That said, a degree in African Studies can open many opportunities for you to be able to apply that knowledge into other fields. There are two ways I want to talk about this. Because we are a social science program, when you take African Studies, you have an opportunity to get what I call the general soft skills in social science. So for example, with the degree, you would be able to learn things like research methods, critical thinking. You'll be able to write good analysis, write very good papers. These are general skills you will get by taking African Studies, communication skills, and all of those general social science skills you will gain. But in addition to that, there are more specific, if you like, hard skills that you will get from the program, including understanding the history of Africa and its importance in the world, doing research in Africa, understanding current socioeconomic and political issues, explaining why they happen, and maybe analyzing some of the ways of resolving problems within the continent, but also problems that affect the African diaspora. Now, with those two sets of skills, both the soft and general social science skills and the specific training you get in African Studies, you can be able to apply for job opportunities in government, in the private sector, and within the NGO or the civil society world. With government, some of our students have been able, with their degree, to apply for positions like a cultural advisor or an aid worker or a political analyst, maybe in global affairs, Canada, in foreign service, in immigration. With the private sector or business, more specifically, you can get a position as a diversity advisor or a cultural advisor for a transnational company, a business enterprise, or the African Development Bank, who are looking for people with some knowledge in Africa or about African people to be able to provide those advisory roles. With the NGO world, or even international governmental organization like the United Nations Development Program or UNICEF, you can get employment with a degree in African Studies in becoming a development officer or a foreign correspondent or a project officer or a research assistant. So yeah, even though we do not provide you with a specific career field, you will be able to use your degree in African Studies to apply yourself, to be able to apply for jobs in government, in the private sector, and outside government in the NGO world. So I'm going to end with that as something that I think you should think about as you decide to come to York and looking for a program you would want to get a degree in. Thank you.
Our African Studies program is not yet a direct entry program, so you won't be able to find it in the OUAC or on the application system. However, it is a transferable program, and we have many students who take related courses in their first year in order to continue their studies in second year and beyond. I'd like to call upon Professor Cisse, if you'd like to say a few words to students who might be interested in African Studies here at York University.
Sure. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that at the moment the program is not a direct entry, but it's something that we are working on. It's something that we would like to have. But that said, we have opportunities for students who, after they have come to York, they may enroll in our program. And I want to stress the importance of the flexibility that we give to our students, which is that you have an opportunity to combine African studies with another discipline. It is a rare opportunity, and it's one that enable our students at the end of the day to be able to graduate with a knowledge that speaks to an interdisciplinary understanding of the social world. We have students who are being able to combine international development studies with African studies, but there are other opportunities. In fact, that's one thing that we are working on right now, to give students the opportunity to combine African studies with any other discipline at York. We think it will be interesting for our students because there might be a student who is, for example, in economics, who is, for example, in business, right? But is interested in applying that knowledge to Africa, or is interested in knowing more about Africa. So we are increasing that opportunity for students so that there will be no limit for you to be able to combine African studies with any other discipline of your choice. We are working on that.
Fantastic. Yeah. One of our strengths here in the faculty, and I like to call it sort of lenses or filters, that you are doing a lot of interdisciplinary studies from a lot of different courses, but you're always bringing that filter of your major with you to look at it from a certain perspective. And I think African studies provides a very powerful perspective on, just like you said, just about everything from literature to culture to business.
Hope you enjoyed the program chat, everyone.
If you have any questions about our LA&PS programs, be sure to visit our website to learn more.
And make sure to stay in touch with us for a chance to win a $100 gift card at the York Bookstore. The link to our website is in the description box below.
You can also send your questions to us, the LA&PS Student Recruitment Team.
We'd love to hear from you, so send us an email at goyork@yorku.ca.
And we look forward to seeing you all on campus next year.
Bye.
Bye.